Hello and welcome to our introduction on evolution. I am teaching you from our Big Lake campus. It is lovely here at Big Lake campus of St. John's Preparatory School. I'm sitting here in my son's room with Star Wars themed son's room with myself and my cat, Star. Her name is Star, and she's in a Star Wars themed room. It's all a bit much. But evolution. I've broken this PowerPoint up into 3 days. This is like the intro first day. So this is just looking at slides 1 through 23 on the PowerPoint. You don't have to listen to this. You can just take your own notes if you want. My own voice annoys me horribly. I can't listen to it after I make these recordings. But moving on. Evolution. Evolution is one of my favorite topics, and I'm really, really sad that we're not learning this together in person in class. But evolution is amazing. Evolution is the backbone of biology. Without it, we wouldn't have any life, and we wouldn't have any biology class. It is there's a ton of definitions. One definition, that it's the development of new organisms from pre-existing organisms over time, over a long, long, long period of time. And why does it happen? Why? It happens because our Earth changes. If our Earth stayed exactly the same, nothing would ever evolve. If the planet, if every organism stayed exactly the same, there would be no evolution. Evolution happens because we need to change, things need to change, organisms need to change and adapt to new environments. And there's a plethora of reasons: food, shelter, lots of things that affect evolution. Just so that we are on the same page with words as we talk about vocabulary, adaptation and acclimatization. An adaptation, a change in population over time. Adaptation in language arts class might be something like, I adapted to this new online learning. That's a very different definition in Miss Fitch classes, in Mrs. Fitch class. In my biology class, an adaptation, it's a change in a population over a really long period of time. Like whales, they used to have walking limbs, they're gone. They still have little hip bones, but their walking limbs are gone. Right? So that's an adaptation in biology class. Whereas an acclimatization, it's a change in an individual lifetime. I'm getting used to this crazy online learning madness, right? Or I moved from Africa when I was younger. I had to get used to Minnesota winter. I still hate it, but I've acclimatized. I have acclimatization to it. Best supported argument ever to evolution, to all these changes or evolution. There were a lot of arguments around evolution within the last 100 years. As a science teacher, I could get in trouble for teaching evolution. I could also get in trouble for not teaching evolution. At different points in our history, there's a ton of arguments around evolution. We might do a little bit of research, the history of evolution and how it's evolved. Some of the very first people to think about evolution, though, were looking at Earth formations. There's a geologist, George Cuvier. He was looking at rock layers, and he said, looking at these different rock layers, there's definitely catastrophes that happened. He noticed different changes in rock layers, and he put it up to these catastrophes were like Noah's flood, right? Like biblical stories, like Noah's flood happened, and oh look, this fossil stopped after this point in time. There must have been Noah's flood, and that organism doesn't exist anymore, kind of a thing. Charles Lyell was another geologist who was looking at the shape of the Earth's surface in the past. His idea, he called uniformitarianism. That the Earth, the processes that happened in the past are still happening today. These were both mind-blowing ideas when they came about. But one of my favorite earliest ideas is Lamarck's idea of inheritance of acquired traits, which means if I'm in a horrible car crash, I'm not going to be in a car crash, but if I was in a horrible car crash and I lost a leg and an arm, and then I had a baby, my baby would also have no leg and no arm, right? So inheritance of acquired traits, that you acquire something, you dye your hair purple, you have a baby, your baby has purple hair. We know now that that's not true, but I love that idea. It just makes me giggle. But that you could somehow acquire a trait, you could get a trait and pass it on to your baby, right? His big thing was giraffes stretched their necks. They stretched and stretched, made their necks really long, and then passed that on. So if a weightlifter got really buff, he could have a really buff baby. um, then came along Charles Darwin, and Charles Darwin, he developed the theory of evolution by means of natural selection and descent with modification. It's lovely, lovely. And what does that mean? We're going to talk a little bit about what is a scientific theory, and we're going to do a little lesson about what is a scientific theory. Again, language arts, if you say in a language arts class, I have a theory about gas prices, or I have a theory about why so-and-so did this in native son. A theory in that context is really an opinion, whereas a theory in scientific context is really well proven, really well backed up idea. And we'll talk more about that. The development of the theory of natural selection. Darwin traveled around the world. And he just looked at land formations. He looked at all kinds of things. And he noticed finches on the Galapagos Islands. And he noticed that all these finches looked really, really similar, but they had different beaks for eating different foods. Some individuals are better adapted to their environment, and these individuals thrive and reproduce. So if you have a group of insects and they blend into the background, you have some insects that are green, some insects that are yellow. The yellow ones, the green ones really stick out. Birds are going to eat those, right? You only have yellow ones. After a few generations, almost all of your beetles, your insects, are going to be yellow. And a way to think about this, descent with modification, all organisms came from a common ancestor way, way, way back when. Another way to think about this is with the tree of life, that in the very, very center of this picture, the tree of life, there was the first life, whatever that is. Was it God? Was it, we don't know. We don't know. Was it an RNA-based life form, a DNA-based life form? But there was something alive, and it evolved into all these things, bacteria, plants, animals, everything, funguses that are alive. It's amazing. As Darwin traveled around the world, he started coming up with these little trees. And what does this remind you of? The pedigrees that we worked on in genetics. It's exactly what they are. They're kind of upside down, but it's exactly what they are. We're going to do an online activity with cladograms with these family trees turned upside down, an organism that's a shared ancestor, so a common ancestor, like species A in this picture, species B and C. Species A, chimpanzees, species C, humans. We had a common ancestor way, way, way back when with chimpanzees. We did not come from chimpanzees, right? That is a misconception. We did not evolve from chimpanzees. Chimpanzees did not evolve from us, but we probably had a common ancestor. In our not so recent past, we share 98% of our DNA with chimpanzees. So being able to read a cladogram, a phylogenetic tree, we're going to practice this, but being able to read this, like there's a diagram showing species with common ancestors. If I asked you a question on a test, I might say, like, where's the common ancestor between crocodiles and birds? And I'd want you to be able to see, oh yeah, it's letter A right here. Crocodiles, birds, letter A. Where's a common ancestor between birds, reptiles, mammals? Boom. B. Where's the common ancestor among all the organisms? That would be back at C, right? Human evolution is very interesting, and I have an amazing video. I'm going to try and link it up so that you can watch it. Human evolution, though, we will talk about that at a later time. If you have any questions, please email me. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.